Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're diving into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you've given us articles, excerpts, even an entire analysis. Looks like you're really digging into this one.
It's clear you want to understand not just the rules themselves, but the wider reaction, the controversies, the whole Peterson phenomenon. That's what we're here to explore.
You got that right. Peterson, he throws a lot at the reader. Psychology, philosophy, even mythology.
He
Does it feel like drinking from a fire hose, lobsters and hierarchies, raising kids, cleaning your room? Where do we even begin?
That's part of what makes him so compelling, I think. He blends these seemingly disparate ideas into a framework for living.
Okay.
But there is a structure to his thinking. We'll use that to navigate the key points and highlight what you might find most insightful.
Okay, that makes sense. So right out of the gate, Peterson introduces this idea of order and chaos.
Yes.
Almost like these fundamental forces battling it out, both in the world and within us.
Exactly. This concept comes from Jungian psychology, where order and chaos are seen as archetypes in the human psyche. Peterson takes that idea and runs with it, connecting it to everything from ancient myths to modern-day anxieties.
He even ties order and chaos to masculine and feminine, which is sure to raise some eyebrows.
It's definitely one of his more controversial points.
Yeah.
But it's important to understand that he's not making a literal statement about gender roles here.
Right.
He's drawing on these archetypes to illustrate deeper psychological principles. What he's saying is that we need both order and chaos to thrive. Too much order, and we become rigid and stifled.
Yeah.
Too much chaos, and we're overwhelmed and lost.
So finding the right balance is key.
Yeah.
Like my to-do list is order, but my brainstorming session is chaos.
Precisely. And Peterson argues that understanding this dynamic helps us navigate life's challenges more effectively.
This is where it gets interesting. He actually uses lobsters to illustrate this.
He does. Peterson talks about how lobsters, believe it or not, have a hierarchy.
Wow.
And their position in that hierarchy affects their serotonin levels, which influences their behavior.
Okay.
The dominant lobsters, the winners, have higher serotonin and are more confident and assertive. The lobsters lower in the hierarchy have lower serotonin and tend to be more withdrawn.
So he's connecting this to humans.
Yes.
Is he saying our biology plays a role in our success?
That's part of it. He's suggesting that, like lobsters, humans are wired for hierarchy, and that our position within a social structure can impact our brain chemistry and behavior.
And this ties into his first rule, stand up straight with your shoulders back. It's not just about posture, it's about embodying confidence and taking your place in the world.
Exactly. Peterson suggests that by adopting a posture of confidence, we can actually influence our own serotonin levels.
Interesting.
And in turn, our behavior and how others perceive us.
Okay.
Remember those dominant lobsters? They literally held themselves differently.
Peterson seems to suggest that humans can hack this system too.
That's one way to look at it. He's arguing that we have more agency than we think. And that even small changes, like improving our posture, can have a ripple effect on our lives.
Okay, that makes sense. He's also a big proponent of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk in the sources you've shared about Peterson saying, stop complaining and fix your own life.
That's right. He's pushing back against what he sees as a victimhood mentality.
Okay.
He's challenging people to stop blaming external circumstances and start taking ownership of their choices in their lives.
I can see how that would resonate with people.
Yeah.
But what about those facing systemic barriers?
Right.
Does Peterson address that?
That's a valid question, and one that he's been criticized for not fully addressing.
Right.
Some argue that his emphasis on personal responsibility can overshadow the very real challenges that people face due to factors outside their control.
It's a complex issue for sure.
Yeah.
But even if you don't agree with everything he says, I think there's value in that call to action, to focus on what we can control. And this leads nicely into rule #2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This rule challenges us to examine how we treat ourselves compared to how we treat others. Peterson observes that we often take better care of our pets than we do ourselves.
I know, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
I'll make sure my dog gets a walk even if I skip my workout.
Right.
Why do we do that?
Peterson suggests it might be tied to self-criticism and a sense of unworthiness.
Okay.
We might feel like we don't deserve the same care and attention that we give to others. This rule encourages us to shift that perspective and prioritize our own well-being.
That's powerful. He's encouraging us to be kinder to ourselves and recognize that self-care isn't selfish, it's essential.
Right.
Can't help others if we're running on empty.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you are worthy of care and attention, just like anyone else you would help. It's an act of self-respect and a foundation for personal growth.
This reminds me of another key theme in Peterson's work, his focus on truth.
Yeah.
Why is that so important to him?
Peterson believes that speaking truthfully, even when it's uncomfortable, is crucial for individual and societal well-being. He even links lying to weakness of character, arguing that it erodes trust and undermines our relationships.
But doesn't everyone think they're telling the truth? How do you know what's really true?
That's a great question. Peterson's not just talking about factual truth.
Okay.
He's talking about a deeper truth, a willingness to be honest with yourself about your own motivations and biases. It's about intellectual honesty, not just winning an argument or maintaining a comfortable facade.
So it's about aligning your actions with your values, even when it's difficult.
Precisely. And it ties back to his emphasis on personal responsibility.
Okay.
You can't fix your life if you're not honest about what needs fixing.
I'm starting to see how these ideas connect. It's a coherent philosophy, even if you don't agree with every aspect of it. But we can't talk about Peterson without addressing the elephant in the room. He's a pretty controversial figure.
Definitely. He's a lightning rod for debate, and that's reflected in the sources you've shared. His views on gender roles, hierarchies, even Marxism have attracted criticism from both ends of the political spectrum.
Why do you think that is?
Well, part of it is that he doesn't shy away from expressing strong opinions.
Right.
He challenges conventional wisdom. And that can be unsettling for people, especially when it touches on sensitive topics.
For example, his comments about letting boys be boys have sparked some heated arguments. What's at the heart of that debate?
It ties back to his views on order and chaos and the inherent differences between men and women.
Okay.
Peterson believes that boys are naturally drawn to risk-taking and competition, and that trying to suppress those instincts is harmful.
While I see the value in encouraging healthy risk-taking, I do wonder if that argument sometimes overlooks the potential for those behaviors to manifest in harmful ways.
That's a valid point. And as part of the ongoing conversation around Peterson's work, some see his views as celebrating natural differences, while others see it as promoting potentially harmful stereotypes.
And this is where things get really interesting. He doesn't just talk about these differences in a theoretical sense. He argues that they have implications for how we structure society.
You're talking about his views on hierarchy.
Exactly. Peterson argues that hierarchies are natural and even necessary, but some critics see that as justifying inequality and oppression.
That's one of the major criticisms leveled at him.
Okay.
His detractors argue that his views on hierarchy can be used to reinforce existing power structures that benefit some groups at the expense of others.
It seems like his work invites us to think critically about these complex issues, even if we ultimately disagree with his conclusions.
That's one of the most valuable things about engaging with Peterson's work, even if it makes you uncomfortable. He's not afraid to ask tough questions and challenge conventional thinking.
Okay, I'm starting to see why he's such a polarizing figure. He really pushes people to think differently.
He does.
But with all the controversy, why do you think his work resonates with so many people? He's clearly tapped into something.
That's a great question. And it's something that we'll explore further as we delve deeper into his 12 rules.
Okay.
But I think it comes down to a few things. First, he offers a sense of order and meaning in a world that often feels chaotic and meaningless.
So he's providing a framework, a roadmap for navigating life's challenges.
Exactly. And for many people, that's incredibly appealing, especially in a culture that often feels adrift, lacking a sense of purpose or direction.
I can see that. He's offering a sense of grounding, a way to make sense of the world.
He also emphasizes the importance of individual responsibility and striving for excellence, which resonates with people who are looking for a path to self-improvement and personal fulfillment.
It's like he's saying, you have the power to change your life, which can be a really empowering message.
Absolutely. And that message has clearly struck a chord with a lot of people.
This has been a fascinating conversation so far. We've covered a lot of ground, from lobsters and hierarchies to the controversies surrounding Peterson's work.
We have.
But there's still so much to explore.
There is. We've only just scratched the surface. In part 2, we'll delve deeper into Peterson's 12 rules and explore the practical implications of his ideas. Welcome back to your deep dive into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Okay.
We've set the stage with the big ideas. Now let's get into the rules themselves.
Okay, we've talked about order and chaos, personal responsibility, the lobster thing.
Right.
But Peterson gives us 12 specific rules. Let's unpack what those actually look like in practice.
He does, and it's fascinating how each rule builds on those core concepts we discussed.
Yeah.
Take rule #3, for instance. Make friends with people who want the best for you.
Sounds pretty straightforward, real.
Yeah, I mean, we all know toxic relationships can drag us down.
But is there more to it than just avoiding negativity?
Absolutely. Peterson takes it a step further.
Yeah.
He argues that surrounding yourself with people who are striving for improvement,
Okay.
who have goals and ambitions, will actually elevate your own life. Their energy, their drive
Okay.
becomes contagious.
That's interesting. So it's not just about who you don't spend time with, but actively seeking out those positive influences.
Right.
It makes me think about my own circle. Who's pushing me to grow? Who's celebrating my wins?
Exactly. It's a question worth pondering. And it connects to a bigger idea that runs through Peterson's work. The importance of surrounding yourself with people who challenge and inspire you, who want to see you succeed.
This seems particularly relevant in today's world with social media and all.
Yep.
It's easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others,
Oh, yeah.
feeling inadequate.
That's exactly what Peterson addresses in Rule #4.
Okay.
Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. It's a powerful reminder that we're all on our own unique journeys with different starting points, different goals.
He uses that analogy of multiple games running simultaneously, right? It's not about winning everyone else's game. It's about playing your own to the best of your ability.
Exactly. And focusing on your own progress, however small, can be incredibly motivating. Instead of feeling envious of someone else's success, you can celebrate your own wins, no matter how insignificant they may seem to the outside world.
It's about shifting your focus from external validation to internal satisfaction.
And that can be incredibly empowering. It allows you to define success on your own terms.
Right.
And find fulfillment in the process,
Right.
rather than chasing some external benchmark.
Okay, onto a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Parenting.
Yes.
Rule #5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. That sounds a little harsh at first glance.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's actually about setting clear boundaries and teaching children how to behave in a way that will ultimately benefit them.
Okay.
Peterson is emphasizing the importance of raising kids who are not only successful,
Right.
but also kind, responsible, respectful individuals.
So it's not about controlling every aspect of their lives,
Right.
but about guiding them to become well-rounded adults that other people actually like to be around.
Precisely. Peterson argues that teaching children self-control and respect for others will ultimately make them happier and more successful in all areas of their lives.
It's about equipping them with the tools to navigate the world effectively, both personally and socially. He also talks about the importance of discipline, which can be a bit of a touchy subject. What's his take on that?
He believes that loving discipline, even if it involves consequences, is essential for a child's development.
Okay.
He argues that parents have a responsibility to correct bad behavior, not just ignore it or hope it goes away on its own.
It's about preparing them for the real world,
Yeah.
where actions have consequences. It's about helping them develop the character traits they'll need to navigate those consequences effectively.
Right. And this ties back to rule #6.
Okay.
Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Lead by example.
Ah, the infamous clean your room rule.
Nice metaphor, right.
Yes. What's Peterson really getting at here?
He's saying that before we try to change the world or criticize others,
Right.
we need to take responsibility for our own lives.
Right.
Start with yourself. Get your own act together
Okay.
before you go telling everyone else how to live theirs.
It's about recognizing that we often project our own unresolved issues onto others. Before pointing fingers, we need to look inward and ensure we're not contributing to the problem.
Exactly. And it starts with small, manageable steps.
Okay.
Clean your room, get your finances in order, address those unhealthy habits. It's about creating order in your own life before you go tackling the chaos of the world.
I like that. It's a humbling reminder that change starts with ourselves. Okay. Ready for rule #7.
Sure.
Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. This one feels particularly relevant in our instant gratification, life hack obsessed culture.
It does. Peterson is arguing against a life of chasing fleeting pleasures, or taking shortcuts. He's advocating for finding something that truly gives you purpose,
Right.
a sense of meaning, even if it involves sacrifice, even if it's the harder path.
It's about aligning your actions with your values, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. It sounds a lot like what we were talking about with deeper truth earlier.
You're spot on. They are very much connected. It's about living authentically,
Right.
pursuing what matters to you on a deeper level, not just what's easy or trendy.
Okay, rule #8, tell the truth or at least don't lie. We touched on this earlier, but I think it's worth revisiting. What are the implications of this rule for everyday life?
It's about being honest with yourself and others, even when it's difficult. Peterson argues that lying, even small white lies, erodes trust and damages relationships. It creates a disconnect between our internal world and external reality,
Right.
which can lead to all sorts of problems.
It becomes a slippery slope, right?
It does.
Once you start lying, even about small things, it gets easier to justify bigger lies down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the impact on others.
Right.
Lying to ourselves, avoiding uncomfortable truths, prevents us from growing and evolving as individuals. It's a form of self-sabotage.
It takes courage to be truly honest,
It does.
both with ourselves and with others.
It does. But Peterson argues that it's essential for living a meaningful and fulfilling life.
Okay, rule #9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. This feels particularly important in our current climate of polarization and division.
Absolutely. It's a call for humility and open-mindedness. Peterson is encouraging us to approach conversations, especially with those we disagree with a willingness to learn.
It's about recognizing that everyone has something valuable to offer, even if we don't immediately see it. It's about being open to having our own perspectives challenged and expanded.
And that can be uncomfortable, especially when our beliefs are deeply held.
Yeah.
But Peterson argues that this is how we grow, intellectually and emotionally. It's how we break out of our echo chambers and engage in meaningful dialogue with people who hold different views.
It's a reminder that learning is a lifelong process.
Yes.
And it requires us to be open to new ideas and different perspectives.
Precisely. And it's not about blindly accepting everything you hear. It's about truly listening, considering different viewpoints, and then forming your own conclusions based on the best available evidence.
Okay, rule #10, be precise in your speech. This one seems almost technical, but I'm sensing there's more to it than meets the eye.
You're right. Peterson isn't just talking about grammar here. He's arguing that precise language is essential for clear thinking and effective communication.
Okay.
He believes that vague language can lead to misunderstandings, even conflict.
So it's about choosing your words carefully
Right.
and making sure you're conveying your message accurately.
Exactly. It's about being intentional with your language and avoiding ambiguity. He also talks about the importance of defining your terms, especially when discussing complex or controversial topics.
It's about making sure everyone is on the same page, so to speak,
Yeah.
and holding ourselves accountable for the words we use.
Exactly. Sloppy language can be a sign of sloppy thinking. And imprecise communication can lead to all sorts of problems, both in our personal lives and in society as a whole.
It's a reminder that words have power, and we should use them wisely. Okay, on to one of Peterson's most controversial rules.
Yes.
Rule #11, do not bother children when they are skateboarding.
Yeah.
This seems a little out of left field.
Right.
What's he getting at with this one?
It's definitely one of his more provocative rules. It's caused a lot of discussion and debate.
Right.
On the surface, it seems like he's encouraging risky behavior.
Right.
But on a deeper level, he's talking about allowing children, particularly boys,
Okay.
to explore their limits and develop their own sense of competence and resilience.
So it's not about letting them run wild without any supervision.
No.
But about giving them the space to take calculated risks
Right.
and learn from their mistakes.
Exactly. He's not advocating for reckless abandon.
Okay.
He's arguing that overprotecting children can actually do more harm than good.
Right.
It can prevent them from developing the skills they need to navigate the challenges of life.
He uses skateboarding as a metaphor for any activity that involves a certain level of risk and requires courage and resilience.
Right.
He's saying that facing challenges, even those that might involve scrapes and bruises, is part of growing up.
And by trying to eliminate all risk, we might be inadvertently harming our children in the long run, preventing them from developing into confident, capable adults.
It makes me think about that old saying, falls are for learning.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we can't shield our children from all hardship and that sometimes the best thing we can do is let them fall down and get back up on their own.
It's about fostering independence and a sense of self-efficacy.
Okay, we've made it to the final rule, and it's a bit of a head-scratcher.
Yeah.
Rule #12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. What's Peterson's message here?
It's actually a beautiful and profound rule.
Okay.
Peterson is reminding us to appreciate the small moments of joy and beauty in life, even amidst suffering and chaos.
So it's about finding those little glimmers of hope and letting them lift our spirits.
Yeah.
Petting a cat as a metaphor for noticing the good.
Exactly. That's about being present, savoring those small things that bring us pleasure.
Okay.
A beautiful sunset, a kind gesture,
Hmm.
a purring cat. He argues that these small acts of appreciation can help us cope with the inevitable hardships of life.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's still beauty to be found if we're open to it.
And those small moments of joy can sustain us and give us the strength to keep going.
It's a powerful message and a fitting end to our exploration of the 12 rules. But we're not done yet.
There's still more to uncover.
Okay.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll zoom out and look at Peterson's work as a whole.
Okay.
We'll explore the criticisms he's faced and the impact he's had on our culture.
It's sure to be a thought-provoking discussion. So until then, keep those minds open and maybe pet a cat or two. Welcome back to the final part of your deep dive into 12 rules for life. We've explored the rules themselves, but now it's time to zoom out and consider the broader context. Peterson's work has sparked a ton of debate and become a cultural phenomenon.
That's right, we've unpacked the 12 rules, but the conversation around Jordan Peterson goes way beyond any list. He's a polarizing figure who's ignited strong reactions, both positive and negative.
Okay, so let's tackle that. He's been accused of being everything from a misogynist to a fascist. How do we make sense of those accusations?
Well, it's important to approach this with nuance. Some of the criticism stems from genuine concerns about his ideas and their potential impact. Other criticisms seem to be based on misinterpretations or taking his words out of context.
So where do we even begin to untangle that?
Let's start with the most common criticism, his views on gender roles. Peterson has been accused of promoting traditional gender roles that limit women's opportunities.
That's something I was wondering about. He talks about inherent differences between men and women, but how does that translate to his views on how society should be structured?
Peterson argues that men and women have different strengths and weaknesses, and that these differences are rooted in biology and evolution.
Oh, okay.
He suggests that these differences have implications for career choices, relationship dynamics, and even how we approach parenting.
That's where things get tricky. While I can see how acknowledging those differences could be helpful in understanding human behavior, I do worry about those ideas being used to justify discrimination or limit opportunities for women.
That's a valid concern, and it's at the heart of the debate surrounding Peterson's work. His critics argue that his emphasis on inherent differences could be used to reinforce traditional gender roles that disadvantage women.
For example, his comments about women in the workplace have been particularly controversial.
Right. Peterson has argued that women are often less competitive than men, and that this can impact their career trajectories. He's also talked about the challenges of balancing work and family life for women, which has led to accusations of him promoting the idea that women should primarily be homemakers.
I can see how those statements, even if not intended that way, could be interpreted as supporting traditional gender roles that many people find outdated and unfair.
Absolutely. And it's important to acknowledge that those concerns are legitimate and reflect a broader societal conversation about gender equality.
Okay, so gender roles are a major point of contention. What about the accusations of him being a fascist? That seems like a pretty extreme claim. Where does that come from?
That criticism often stems from his views on hierarchy and social order. Peterson argues that hierarchies are a natural part of human societies and that they can serve important functions.
But isn't that just accepting the status quo, even if it's unjust?
That's what his critics argue. They see his acceptance of hierarchy as a way of justifying inequality and oppression. They point to his critiques of Marxism and his defense of traditional values as evidence that he's aligned with right-wing ideologies.
So he's walking a fine line. On the one hand, he's saying hierarchies are inevitable, but on the other hand, he's not necessarily endorsing all forms of hierarchy or saying that we shouldn't strive for more just and equitable society.
Exactly, and that's where interpretation comes into play. Some people hear his message as a call to accept the way things are, while others hear it as a call to understand the complexities of human social structures so that we can work towards a better future.
It seems like a lot of the controversy boils down to how people interpret his message and what they choose to focus on.
That's a big part of it. Peterson is a complex thinker, and his work can't be easily categorized or reduced to sound bites.
Okay, so we've talked about the criticisms, but with all the controversy, why do you think his work resonates with so many people? He's clearly tapped into something.
He has. I think it comes down to a few key factors. First, he speaks to a deep longing for meaning and purpose in a world that often feels chaotic and meaningless.
He offers a sense of order in a world that feels increasingly disordered.
Exactly. And his emphasis on personal responsibility, facing your demons and striving for excellence, resonates with a lot of people, especially in a culture that often emphasizes victimhood and a sense of entitlement.
It's like he's offering a counter-narrative to the prevailing cultural winds.
He is. He's challenging people to step up, take ownership of their lives, and strive for something greater than themselves. And that message is deeply appealing to many, even if they don't agree with every aspect of his philosophy.
He's also not afraid to tackle controversial topics head-on. He speaks his mind, and that authenticity, even if you disagree with him, can be refreshing.
It is in an age of carefully crafted public personas and social media, posturing his willingness to be forthright, even if it means alienating some people, comes across as genuine and relatable.
But it's like he's saying, this is what I believe, even if it's not popular.
And that can be incredibly powerful. It resonates with people who are tired of the constant pressure to conform to parrot the correct opinions.
He's also very good at weaving together ideas from a wide range of sources, ancient myths, philosophy, psychology, religion, into a coherent worldview.
That's another key to his appeal. He's offering a framework for understanding the world and our place in it. It's not just self-help, it's a philosophy of life, a way of making sense of the human condition. And for people who are searching for meaning, for a sense of belonging, for a way to navigate the complexities of life, that can be incredibly compelling.
So even if you don't agree with everything he says, there's still value in engaging with his ideas.
Absolutely. Peterson's work is a catalyst for conversation, for self-reflection, for grappling with big ideas. And whether you love him or hate him, there's no denying that he's had a profound impact on our culture.
He's brought certain topics, like the importance of meaning in life, personal responsibility, and the role of myth and tradition back into the mainstream conversation. And that's a valuable contribution, even if you don't agree with all of his conclusions.
He's challenged us to think differently about ourselves, about society, about the very nature of good and evil. And that's something worth celebrating, even amidst the controversy.
This deep dive has been quite the journey. We've covered so much ground, the 12 rules, the controversies, the impact of his work, and I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of Jordan Peterson and why he's such a significant figure.
Remember, this is just the beginning of your exploration. There's always more to learn, more to question, more to discover.
And that's the beauty of a deep dive. It's not about finding all the answers. It's about embracing the journey of discovery, of wrestling with complex ideas, of expanding our understanding of the world and ourselves.
So keep diving deep into whatever sparks your curiosity. Keep asking those tough questions, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find yourself petting a cat on the street, noticing a small moment of beauty in the midst of the chaos.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep thinking, keep learning, keep questioning.